Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. We've got a full house tonight. Look at this. All positions here are filled, and we don't have another microphone left. But it's a very important show, and I'm really pleased to be joined by our guest this evening. To my left is Jared Falk. He is a Special Olympics athlete, and we're going to hear more about what he's been doing as far as his athleticism goes. To his left is Tommy Jaime. Tommy is the Director of Communications for Special Olympics Wisconsin. And then to my right, of course, we have Jared's parents. We have Wendy and Christopher. Chris, as we'll call you tonight. So thanks all for being here. Really appreciate it a whole lot. Want to kind of start out with you, Tommy, and let's find out a little bit about Special Olympics. Why don't you tell us a little about the history of it?
So right now, this is the perfect time to talk about the history of Special Olympics because we're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary tomorrow, just down the highway in Chicago.
Okay.
July 20th, 1968, that was the very first Special Olympics competition.
Wow.
It was held in Soldier Field in Chicago. So Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who was our founder, she held the very first, it was called the International Special Olympics Games. And that was really what kickstarted this whole, what we now call like an inclusion revolution. So the year after that, the first competition in Wisconsin was held. A few years later, it was it became an accredited program within Wisconsin. It started with just those about 1,000 people from the United States and Canada for those 68 games. Now globally, we're in over 170 countries.
Wow.
We have approximately 5 million athletes worldwide. So it is something that has grown immensely in a short period of time, and we're very proud of what it's become, and it's become a very holistic kind of program that goes beyond, sports, that
Sure.
deals with issues of athlete health, leadership, trying to help people with intellectual disabilities become, included and accepted and respected in their communities.
Sure. And, just for viewers or listeners on the radio, this was not planned to be occurring at the time of your 50th anniversary. It's just by happenstance that this happened. So kudos to me for having that sort of vision.
Your 50th anniversary special, right?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Some people may feel I've been here 50 years. So what is the overall mission of Special Olympics?
So the mission of Special Olympics is again through sport to bring about a more inclusive society, to make for a world where for individuals with intellectual disabilities in particular do feel like they are valued, that they are respected, that they are included in society, in all facets of society. So one of the reasons that Eunice Kennedy Shriver was such a visionary in this respect was because she saw that at the time, people who had intellectual disabilities were just being locked away essentially, and they were just being kind of shut out from society and from being included. And she saw that was wrong, and she actually, did something about it and started this revolution. And so we want to make sure that every person, no matter what their abilities or disabilities are, has an opportunity to participate in life and
Sure.
everything that comes with being a human being and being valued as a human being.
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the Kennedy children, the sister of Senator Kennedy and President Kennedy and the other Senator Kennedy.
Rosemary Kennedy.
Rosemary Kennedy was actually, as you said, locked away here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so and that's often credited as being one of the reasons for her being so involved in this kind of, aspect of life, and that was a mission of hers, was because she saw the way that her sister was treated and locked away at St. Coletta's in Jefferson for so many years, and just basically door shut on her, and giving her few opportunities to experience everything
Sure.
that life
Absolutely.
brings.
And what could she have become perhaps if that happened in today's world? with what we do know now and the things that we offer to folks. Can you just explain, you mentioned a couple times intellectually disabled. What's the difference for people to understand this between intellectual disabilities and true physical disabilities? And can someone have both?
People definitely can have both, and that happens from time to time, certainly. But an intellectual disability has to do with being diagnosed by a doctor with a variety of disabilities, and that primarily, affects your ability to, your intellect, if you will, and sometimes even to the point where it's like, if you have an IQ of below, I think 70, something like that. But there are a variety of different things. It could be Down syndrome, it could be autism. There's a whole host of different intellectual disabilities that people have around the world. And one of the misconceptions about Special Olympics, people primarily associate it with people with Down syndrome. But again, it's, we service people with all varieties of intellectual disabilities, and
Sure.
that's something that we want to really project. And
Absolutely. And throughout the course of this program, we will be putting the website up on the screen. But for those listening on the radio, it's specialolympicswisconsin.org. So again, specialolympicswisconsin.org. How often are games held?
That's a tough question to answer.
Because there's so many different
Because
kinds of games, right?
We offer 18 sports year-round. Wow. We have 5 sports seasons, and this speaks to another misconception about Special Olympics. Is the two biggest misconceptions, and maybe you guys can back me up on this, is one, that it's primarily associated with people with Down syndrome. And we have lots and lots of people with Down syndrome, and we're, of course, accepting and welcoming of people with Down syndrome. But again, there's a whole spectrum of intellectual disabilities that we serve. The other one is that it's just like a once every 4 years type thing or something like that. Do you guys find that? Do people have that misconception when you talk to them about Special Olympics? Because I know I encounter that. But
I think they do. I think people, or just in general, don't understand how Special Olympics works. That there's so much more to it. They don't understand that there's true athleticism behind it. That these are not awards that are just given. It's not just a participation award. Oh, good for you! Like you did something. This is a real award that's earned, and that the athletes really have to. They start in smaller, local, regional tournaments, and then they have to work their way up through district and then into state level competitions. Mm-hmm. Those district and state level competitions are held annually for each sport. So there's lots of those every year. But for example, when Jared does swimming, there is one district level competition for him every year, and then there's one state level competition if he makes it to state every year. But for all of those sports, all of those sports have their own district level competitions, and all of those sports have their own state level competitions. So there's so many things going on, but I would agree with Tommy that there's a great deal of misconception about that, and it's really exciting when you get to see people's eyes light up when they realize the potential and the possibilities that await their children in Special Olympics.
Yeah. And I think where the every 4 years comes in is because of the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, the Summer Olympics. They're held every 4 years.
Paralympics as well.
Paralympics, and so it's nice to be able to emphasize that Special Olympics is held a lot.
So much more. Every year we hold, just to put a figure to it, we hold approximately 700 competitions just in the state of Wisconsin every year.
Wow.
So there is a really wide range of opportunities. Like I said previously, 18 sports, 5 sports seasons. I don't know, what other sports do you do?
I just do swimming.
Just do swimming? Okay.
Just swimming.
That's very,
In
he
the
told
past,
me,
you had also done another sport as well.
Yeah.
Which was?
bowling, but I don't want to talk about bowling.
Bowling.
He's here to talk about it.
That's right. But in the past, he's done bowling. We have a younger daughter as well who's also on the autism spectrum, and she competes in swimming, bowling. She does softball, basketball.
Okay.
So Special Olympics has opened up a different world.
Volleyball, flag football. If you want to get into winter sports, we have opportunities in snowboarding, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. I mean,
Well, and then you get into unified sports, and actually when we were out in Seattle, our middle daughter, Maria, she's our one neurotypical daughter, she was approached by a coach to consider playing, she's a volleyball player, and she was approached to consider unified volleyball as one of the unified players.
Now, when you say unified, what do you mean by that?
What we're talking about is we're talking about where neurotypical athletes play on a combined team with some of our Special Olympics athletes, and they create a combined team. With and they have adjusted rules so that it's a more equal playing field for everyone. So, for example, in a volleyball, that unified athlete might only be able to serve 2 or 3 serves in a row, and then it's on to another player. So that it's an equal playing field. But for example, they will play on a combined team, and then they go and they play in tournaments. So it's a real partnership. Building that inclusiveness, that inclusive revolution, that's what they're talking about, is building up, now they're really focusing on building up unified sports to help show that inclusiveness that can exist in athletics between our neurotypical athletes and our Special Olympics athletes.
All right, very good. So, Jared, we've got ribbons lying here that you have recently won. You have been, as you mentioned, competing in swimming for a while, and you did a little stint with bowling, but we won't talk about that per your request. But you just were recently in Seattle, as your mom mentioned, for the national competitions, better known better known as the USA Games.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
I think it's my best one of a lifetime experience I think I've ever had.
Really?
Really.
Is that just because you won?
No.
She's
So-
teasing.
I am teasing. That's why we're all giggling.
Yeah.
But so what was it about the experience that made it so wonderful for you, so meaningful?
We did get to travel a little bit.
Okay.
We got to travel to Seattle, so I liked that. And I also liked winning medals because not a lot of neurotypical athletes will win medals like this or ribbons like that.
Right, and they're very heavy too. We'll just hold these up. The camera, we're short-staffed tonight, but
There you go.
kind of, they're very heavy, and so this is a bronze one, and then there's a silver one here. We'll catch the light there with that. And then we have the gold one, and we'll catch the light with that. But yeah, I was surprised at the weight of these.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Very.
And,
really
and
beautiful.
even the ribbons are beautiful. Is there something significant about the colors? Because we've got teal, we've got purple, and we've got white. Are they different colors for different years, or?
Yeah, every USA Games, every World Games has its own kind of theme colors, and so I'm not sure what went into the decision-making process for this particular color
Sure.
palette, but it's beautiful.
It really is.
yeah.
They're two of my favorite colors on here. And so what it says on the ribbon is, of course, it's got the logo, and then it says Special Olympics USA Games, Seattle 2018. And on the flip side of the ribbon, it says Rise with Us. And I know that folks at home can't see that. People on the radio certainly can't see it, but I like the Rise with Us. Is that a theme or just a catchphrase for the year, or what would you call that?
So that was the slogan for
Slogan?
this particular games.
All
So every national or international competition has its own kind of slogan or theme, and this year's was Rise with Us, and so that was on every social media kind of every like post or tweet, that was the hashtag that was being used during these games and in the run up to the games. And then throughout the beautiful opening ceremony, which you guys were in attendance for, that was the refrain. I think at one point they had the whole stadium, 40,000 people in Husky Stadium, just over and over again, "Rise with us." It was really
Wow,
cool. It was
that's
very,
fantastic.
yeah, it was really awesome.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And and I think it speaks to this idea that we want to be more than just a sports, organization. We want to lead to a more inclusive world, and we want the rest of the world to rise with us into a new future where everybody is included and respected and accepted.
Absolutely. So how long have you been involved in Special Olympics, Jared?
I think this is my 6th year
Okay.
in Special Olympics.
And how old are you?
I am 17.
17. So since you were like 11 years old, probably you've been involved in this.
12.
12, okay.
Because I started halfway. I
All right,
started like in
gotcha.
February.
Okay.
The beginning of February. That's when I started my swim season.
Okay, all right. Well, while we're talking about the ribbons and the awards, we have some video and then we have some pictures, and we're kind of going to dovetail these in together. The first thing that we want to show is a short video. There was a very surprise announcement made for you when you were going to be going to the Nationals. They incorporated the police department in that. So why don't we take a look at that video right now? And so what, they called you up and they said your name, and how did you feel at that moment?
I was kind of confused at that moment. I'm like, because see, that's my school liaison officer, and he promised me for a long time I get to drive the squad car. Did I ever get to drive the squad car? No, I did not.
Is that what you thought you were maybe going there for?
Yeah.
You did, okay. So they really did catch you off guard.
Yes, they did catch me off guard.
Well, that's good. Then it was a true surprise. And now, who are all the folks that are around?
Those are teachers.
Okay.
Those are like we had all my teachers, and then the students were like
On the other side.
on the
we
other
can't
side.
see
'Cause
them.
that was my psychology class.
Okay.
Well, and what was so exciting was so Special Olympics had contacted me. It was incredibly difficult. Special Olympics contacted me like a solid 24 hours or 48 hours in advance, telling me that Jared was going to USA Games, but we weren't allowed to tell him.
They wanted us to film him getting the acceptance letter, so.
Okay.
And then, because she used to teach at North, we arranged everything. And
Yes.
She
You had
arranged
some
everything.
in, right?
I had a little bit of an in, and
Little pull.
but I was like, okay, they want you to make it special, and they want you to because they wanted to use it in marketing, and I understood that for fundraising and things. So I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? So I contacted Craig Leader, who's the athletic director at North, and he's also Jared's swim coach at North. And I said, Craig, help me out here. And he goes, okay, let's do this in his psych class. His psych teacher loves him. Let's do it in a psych class. And then Craig went a step further and told all of his swim team friends. So the whole swim team came up. And when I got to North for this, so I was there with the packet. We pulled his sister, who was a freshman, out of her class so that she could see it. And what ended up happening was, and Officer Seaholm has a special connection with Jared, so he's like, no, I'm there. So, and of course, knowing the connection between law enforcement and Special Olympics, he's happy to jump in.
And that day, he normally never wears his full uniform.
Yes.
Today, he wore the full uniform, and I'm like, why is he wearing the full uniform today?
Exactly. So, but when I showed up in the office, by Leader's office, we started walking upstairs, and it was just him and I, and Seaholm joins us. But we get to the top of the stairs, and we come around by Jared's classroom, and the hallway was packed. And I was like, who are all these people? And
So you were surprised too.
I was surprised too. Here was all of his swim team buddies, and it was a whole truckload of teachers that took time out of their schedules to come see him. And it was a bunch of other kids that knew this was going down and loved Jared and wanted to come see it. And my daughter had brought a bunch of her friends and a bunch of paraprofessionals that had worked with Jared. And it was just all of these people. And it just, all of a sudden, I'm like, I did. I got all emotional. I was like, I was practically crying before we walked in the door. And so, and then C. Holmes starts walking and he's like, hold up, hold up, hold up. It does this whole shtick. And it was just great because, but that's one of the cool things about this, I think, about Special Olympics. Take all the tomfoolery out of it, it was funny. But I think about how many times kids with disabilities do not get to be the cool kid, the kid who feels like a rock star for a day. And that's what this was about to me, was that my neurotypical daughter, she's a rock star on the volleyball court, and she gets a lot of accolades for that, and she works really, really hard for it. She totally earns it. But I'm thinking that there's a whole lot of times that people don't see the hours and hours and hours Jared puts in, and they didn't see the 30-plus hours a week he put in for therapy above his schooling for 13 years to get where he is now.
Sure.
And so when I think about all of that, and I think about how hard he's worked to get where he is now, that's the kind of stuff that people need to see. And those are the moments that Special Olympics gives to our kids.
Sure.
That's part of what inclusion is about, is helping our kids have the moments that everyone else takes for granted in the lives of their children.
Sure, absolutely. And I want to talk to you about some of those, ways that you're accepted with your classmates and so forth. But we've got a couple other videos here that we've got. We saw the big surprise, but we also have a video of you swimming, and so let's take a look at that, and then we've got 3 different pictures of you in the pool also. Now, whereabouts are you right there?
Jared was in lane.
5.
Was he in lane 4 or 5?
So
I think he was in lane 5 for this one.
He's the one who just won.
Yeah, I was going to say, look for the leader, right?
Yeah,
There he is. There he is.
Coming out of the pool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there he is.
Yeah, everybody had to get out of the pool by the side.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
it was too high for everybody.
Yeah.
Jared, what question did you always ask your coach after your race?
What was my time? Did I beat my time? That whole thing.
Because you're always trying to beat your last time.
Right. I've been conditioned by that by my high school coach, because it's kind of a competition. Who can get the most improved times every year? I got that award. I have a plaque.
Yeah,
of that.
yeah. So it's about competition with fellow athletes, but it also is a competition within yourself.
Correct.
So, and I think that makes this and the whole competition itself that much more significant in the grand scheme of things, I think.
Well, Special Olympics has a motto. Jared, do you want to do the
What's the
Special Olympics motto?
the oath?
Or the oath, excuse me. Yes.
It's let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt.
Oh.
And that's all repeated at every athletic event. I've never seen a Special Olympic event where they did not have that.
Yeah, it has to be. It's kind of like a requirement that if there's going to be a competition, it's going to be included, and that speaks to what you guys were just talking about. So
absolutely.
you ultimately treat it like any sports competition. You want to win, but if you don't, or if you can't, or for whatever reason it doesn't work out for you, at least you're being brave in the attempt. You're doing right by yourself. You're giving your all, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that's something that should translate over into regular sports too. Whether it's collegiate sports, high school sports, professional sports. I think far too often we get too wrapped up in the competition of it and beating someone, and it's really about not having poor sportsmanship.
Yeah.
It's about displaying good
I've
sportsmanship.
seen like volunteers, like the part "Let me be brave" in the attempt. I've seen like volunteers high five everybody even when they get 8th place, and they're like, You did amazing, even when you got 8th place.
Yeah, because maybe they just beat their old record.
Correct.
You know, and even if they didn't, they were out there. They made the attempt. I don't want to embarrass him, but my friend right here, our floor director, Ed. Ed is also very heavily involved in Special Olympics, and he is going to just tell me, Ed, just shout it out so people can hear it. Where are you going next week?
To a pageant in Tennessee.
A pageant in Tennessee.
Wow.
And he has won a lot of medals and awards as well. And you know, I've been at one event. A lot of times they're not close by enough for me to go.
Oh, okay.
You know,
So in the fall, it'll be 30 years since I've been involved. So I've been involved with
30
it
years.
more than half its time.
okay.
That's
I don't know if the viewing audience or the radio audience heard that, because of course he's not on a microphone and the rest of us are, but later this year he will be involved 30 years with Special Olympics, and that is
That's amazing.
10 years more than you know, half of the time.
There's some athletes that have been there for like 45 or
The whole
50
time.
years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know years
I
and
was
years
kind of
ago.
shocked at the reaction.
Well, that is kind of shocking.
Because when they were at the state games, when they did the opening ceremonies, they're like, how many of you have been in Special Olympics for 5 years? And then when they got to 10 years, I'm like, nope. And then 15, and then it got lower. And it's like, there's ultimately a couple people there that did the whole thing for the whole 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and boy, could they probably tell some stories about how it's grown
Right.
and changed and, you know, evolved like everything else. You know, so so let's show the presentation. We've got a video of the presentation of your medal. Now, which one is it that we're going to be seeing here? Is it the gold one? Is this the gold medal that we're
The
going to be
gold
seeing?
medal is the 200
That's from the
freestyle.
200 free.
Okay.
Yep, that was when he was getting the gold medal
So
for
there's
the
the
200
gold
free.
medal. There you go, Jared Falk.
I
Yay.
think that's
There
like
it
the,
So
And
did you beat
That's the
your
aquatic director of the
personal
pool.
best in the
By
200
12
free?
seconds.
By 12 seconds?
Yep.
So you beat others, but you beat your own personal best.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
by 12
That's a
seconds.
destruction of your
That's,
previous
and
best.
there
Yep.
we've got some pictures
My
now.
regular Special Olympics coach
That's from
is
his
like,
bronze.
just by winning
Okay.
is not good enough. You have to beat your time. You gotta beat your time.
So yeah, I mean, it's just great, and I appreciate you bringing these in because number one, I've never seen them close up like this, and I've never seen or felt just how heavy they are. But they are beautiful. I mean, they're
really
just
are.
they're so beautifully engraved,
There's
and
artwork in
yeah,
these.
there
Oh,
sure is.
absolutely.
Absolutely, yep. So, you know, Jared, you've been involved with this for a while. At school, now, did you just graduate from North?
Oh no,
Okay.
I'm going to be a senior next year.
Okay, all right, very good. So, have you been at North throughout your high school years?
Yes.
Okay. And because we all know, you know, and there's no reason to sugarcoat it, we know that kids can be just downright cruel, you know, and the whole bullying thing. Have you had to deal with challenges like bullying or just not being accepted?
Not really. I don't recall like anything like that.
Okay, well,
I
that's
was
great.
always like included in everything.
That is wonderful. Now, is that, you know, you taught at North for a while, and is that kind of typical of students at North?
I would say, I'm going to be honest here. North is probably one of the most inclusive schools that I've ever worked in. And so I would say, yes, it's pretty typical. I'm aware of times where things happen that Jared was not aware of and I was. And I didn't make it his problem, you know, when those things happened. That was painful, that was difficult, and that was those people's problems. Because I can't stop people from being who they are, I guess. But given the opportunity, I speak to it when I can,
Sure.
and I try to fix it when I can. And the other thing is, I guess my focus is on making him feel confident. and feel good about himself, because the bottom line is there's always going to be the people who act that way.
Yeah.
And I can't change all of those people, but I can help him
Yeah.
feel the best about himself. And our philosophy has been, autism is definitely a part of your life, but it's one part of your life, like having blonde hair and blue eyes. And there's 20 other parts of you that are way more important to know about you than your disability. So your disability is an important part and it affects you, but there's lots of other parts about you, and those are the parts that people need to know and see and celebrate.
Sure.
And that's kind of what we focus on.
Yep.
And we deal with whatever comes.
I don't make myself look like I have a disability at school.
Well, I don't know what that looks like to anybody, Jared. I mean, I think I know what you mean, but I don't think anybody tries to look a certain way per se. But I think I hear what you're saying, that you try to blend, right? You try to
Correct.
fit in, is what you're saying.
And really, that's all any of us can do in any walk of life at all. It's been a long time since I've been in school. But, even back in the 60s and 70s, we had bullies. It was just done in a different way. We didn't have the social media. We didn't have all the other things coming at us. In many ways, it was, I think, an easier time to be different. If someone wanted to pick on you, I think it was a little bit easier time to be different. Today, I don't know how parents of children of any ability are able to deal with it, because it's a tough time to be raising kids. It really is. And I only see it getting worse rather than better. So, kudos to you that you've got the support of such wonderful folks at home, and someone like Tommy with the organization, that you feel like you just naturally fit in, and you don't view yourself as any different, really, and I think that's probably the best way that you can handle it. So hats off to you. If I had one, I'd tip my hat to you.
And I can't speak to it from an insider perspective with what is happening at North like you guys can, but I know from kind of like an institutional perspective, Oshkosh has a really rich history in their relationship with Special Olympics Wisconsin, and Oshkosh North is what we call a unified champion school. So they're a school that has demonstrated that they prioritize inclusion when it comes to people with intellectual disabilities, and so and those schools typically, in order to be a unified champion school, you have to show that people who have intellectual disabilities are treated better than they might be at other schools. And every school is going to have bullies. Every school, no matter how inclusive of an environment you make, there's still going to be those people, I guess the outsiders, or the people, the random people who might cause trouble, if you will. But from what I have heard about Oshkosh North, it's a really, they do a great job of creating an inclusive environment. And again, we in Special Olympics, we have a relationship going back to the mid-'70s with Oshkosh. UW Oshkosh has been the site of our indoor sports tournament, our state basketball tournament, since 1976. And there have been so many great things that have happened between Special Olympics and Oshkosh. So I think Oshkosh is doing something right in that respect.
Yeah, and I like to think, and I don't know because I'm just sort of an outsider looking in, but I would like to think that Oshkosh Area School District as a whole tries very, very hard to be inclusive, and you're never going to get rid of all the bullies. Right. That's just not going to happen. But I think as a whole, the school district here has really gone above and beyond in trying to be inclusive and take every step that it possibly can to make everyone feel like they are a part of rather than apart from.
I think that's absolutely true. The changes that have been made in trying to keep students, there used to be this trend of, having certain programs for certain disabilities located in certain buildings. And now really trying to keep students more in their home schools and trying to build up those communities and help our students feel like they're just a regular part of their homeschool community. Our special education and our pupil services staff have really built that up. Linda Piron, Junko Jacobs, Matt Kemmer, they've really paved a solid foundation for our school district to make that possible throughout. The people that came before them certainly made a huge contribution to that as well. But that's a solid expectation all throughout. I don't think you can go into any building in our district and feel like that's not an expectation. Anything less than absolute inclusion and acceptance, there's just no room for anything less.
Sure, sure.
And also, I think, the school and its community is inextricably linked. And if the kind of community support for Special Olympics in Oshkosh is an indication, then things are definitely, looking good here. I mean, the support in the community for Special Olympics through our fundraisers, like our annual Polar Plunge, our annual Run with the Cops in Oshkosh, various other small fundraisers like Cop on a Rooftop. I mean, Oshkosh always does a phenomenal job of supporting Special Olympics through those fundraisers.
Yeah, and on that note, like any nonprofit organization, Special Olympics is always there to accept your donations if you want to make a donation. And you can do that by going to specialolympicswisconsin.org. And, you can give a little, you can give a lot. As they always say, give till it hurts, whether that's $1 or $1 million,
Yes, $1 million sounds great.
Yeah.
Is that what you're committing to right now?
I don't know about that, but but I have always supported Special Olympics. I will say that.
Thank you.
So, want to talk to you folks a little bit about this, and I'm just going to give my crew in the control room a little heads up. I am going to take a short break here because for some reason I feel like this table is tipping, and before it just totally tips over on us, I want someone to check it. So we will be taking a break very shortly so that can be checked. Oh, we can go now? Oh, well, we need to. So I'm just going to give them a little heads up that we are going to. But before we do that, while they're getting things ready so we can do that, what was your first inkling that you guys wanted to, get your kids and especially Jared involved in Special Olympics?
Honestly, I remember I was a school counselor. I was just getting started as a school counselor in my first job at Traeger Elementary, and I was working alongside my good friend Mary Beth Connors. She's a speech and language pathologist for the school district, and I work for the school district as well. And Jared and his younger sister Natalie are both on the autism spectrum, and they were both students at Traeger. And Mary Beth worked with both of them. And Mary Beth was talking to me one day, and she's telling me about how this, I got to run to a sporting goods store and get the swimsuits, and I got to get this, I got to get some goggles. Aaron's starting swim season soon. And I'm like, swim season? What's going on? And she started telling me about how Aaron swims for Team Blue and started telling me what Team Blue is all about. And my kids had always loved the water. They had always enjoyed being in the water, but they'd never had a real athletic experience. They had done something called the Discovery League in Neenah with Neenah Baseball. But besides that, really nothing, but they loved the water. And in therapy, in ABA therapy for autism, one of the things they're constantly doing is trying to encourage you to get your child to push their boundaries. So the things that they don't want to do, that's exactly the stuff you have to make them do. Because a person with autism will withdraw and pull as much as possible to stay inside their own little world. And unfortunately for them, that's not the world they get to live in. Mm-hmm. So I have to draw them out, whether they like it or not, keep drawing them out. And so Special Olympics seemed like an opportunity for them to interact socially with other kids who would get it. If my kids flipped out, that was okay because I was around other parents who I didn't have to explain my children to, and around adults that understood kids with disabilities. And they got to do something that, again, other kids take for granted. So I thought, what the heck? And they love the water. And they had been taking adaptive swim lessons from the YMCA, which has a phenomenal program. So we thought, why not? Mary Beth put me in touch with Coach Debbie. And Coach Debbie wanted to know more about my children just a little bit. Because when you go to swim for Coach Debbie, it's making a commitment. And here's the thing. She's amazing. She is a tough cookie, but I like that. And I want that for my kids. Because some people look at people with disabilities, and you have to understand there's so much positive intent behind this from these people. But they look at people with disabilities and they feel pity. They look at people with disabilities and they change their voice and they change their affect and talk to them like they're 5. Mm-hmm. They overcompensate and talk to them like they're deaf when they're not. Yeah. There's so many things that happen. And again, it's all well-intended, but it's because they're anxious and they don't know how to act.
Sure.
With this person with disabilities. Coach Debbie comes at our kids and she's like, no, you're an athlete. And you're going to get in my pool, and you're going to swim like an athlete. And she gets you in a university pool with university athletes as your coaches, and you will swim well over 1.5 miles of practice like any other athlete would. Yeah. And I'm going to treat you like an athlete. And I'm going to help you along the way, but you're going to step up. I'm not going to make it easier for you. I'm going to help you find a way to step up. Yeah. And that was so exciting because nobody figured that out for my kids before. Nobody showed me that that was possible. And that was one of the coolest things that Special Olympics ever did, was that somebody wanted to show my kids that how much they could be. And so that was really exciting. Coach Debbie was one of the first people who really showed us what that looked like, and opened that door for us in Special Olympics. She certainly has the athletes. She's been Team Wisconsin Nationals coach twice. She's sent a number of athletes off to national games herself, U.S. or World Games herself. I mean, she has quite the resume. Sure. She's an amazing person. But then in addition, like this year, out of her personal time, so Jared's practicing with her twice a week as part of Team Blue practice, and then she meets with him privately twice a week on her personal time to coach him and get him ready for USA Games. Wow. So he's practicing 4 times a week to get ready for USA Games. Because she's like, you're an athlete. Mm-hmm. You're not a kid with a disability. You're an athlete. Yep. And that's how she sees him. So Special Olympics, that's how we got started. It went from a friend's referral to meeting Coach Debbie. But then once you meet her, she's a force to be reckoned with, but she's the right advocate. Sure. And she was the one who set us on this path, and she's been tough at times, but it's because she sees all the potential and has all the faith in your child, and she will help everyone else see it. Sure. And that's exactly what people need to see in Special Olympics.
Sure, absolutely. Bless you.
Sorry.
Do you feel that you folks being such huge proponents of Special Olympics and what it can really do for folks has helped Jared along the way? Or has it been that? Obviously, it's what his coaches are doing, but, do you feel that that's been, a help?
Yeah. He's gotten to, it's easier, to start with when he first started, to interact with a few of the other kids that have, disabilities and interact with them more and, work a little more. He was also, at that time, Jared was also just getting started kind of finishing off, he started late in Cub Scouts and then transitioned into Boy Scouts. So it was kind of, he started kind of doing both things at the same time. So kind of both helped getting him used to interacting with more and more people and being more comfortable around people.
Well, and what started to happen was Jared stepped into this leadership role. His nickname on our team is the General. And it's because Jared likes leadership roles. But that's what had happened, is Jared stepped into leadership roles, and his Special Olympics experience and going into Boy Scouts, because he made it as far as Lifetime Scout, so he stopped before he finished Eagle Scout. But all the way through all of those experiences, it was all about us, from our side of things. It was all about pushing him because we wanted him to develop the social skills and the life skills. But for him, he made so many friends. He learned about how to be a leader. He learned about how to function away from us, being independent. And what's exciting about that now is he went from being and I know this is personal, Jared, but you went from being a little boy who didn't talk until he was 5, wasn't completely toilet trained until he was 8, and he was fully integrated in all of his high school classes, and now he's done all the coursework, and he has the grade point average that he can go to a 4-year college. I mean, to see that progression from,
You bet.
and all of that, and we credit that. Yes, he's had all this therapy and all of that, but I can't help but look at how much Special Olympics has cultivated in him in terms of his leadership and in terms of his work ethic. Because if he didn't have that work ethic, and if he wasn't willing to speak up for himself and step outside of his comfort zone, as he's learned to do here, none of this really is possible.
I'd be like in a contained special ed room away from.
Probably would. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
All right.
I'd be living at home my whole life.
And where are you going to, I know you've got one more year of high school, but
Yeah.
Where do you hope to go to college?
I hope to go to UW Whitewater.
Okay.
To go into human resources.
Oh, good for you.
And for the example of Rising with Us is like, I'm going to be in HR. How many people with autism do you see becoming human resources managers?
Probably not very many.
Exactly.
You could be
Pave the
blazing
way.
a trail
Yeah.
here, though. We're going to take a real short break here, and I mean a real short break because I don't want the table to tip over. So we're going to take a short break. They're going to check the table legs, and then we will be right back.
Okay. Check the table legs.
You know your smartphone has GPS,
So
don't you?
what's going on here?
But I'm
I
driving
kind of
right
felt
now.
like something was just, it just felt like it was tipping.
Okay, look, I'll help. I got a map.
Sorry to throw a curveball like that at you.
curveball.
I am done with this distraction.
Not my hair dryer. Hey, no! Ah, that's distracting. Okay, Uncle.
Focus on driving, not the distractor.
Find me a new driver.
Get lost.
Okay, we are back. We're back, and the table is all secure, so thanks to
Mystery
everyone
is
for... Yes, well, I just didn't want it to tip over, and then everything goes flying, and then here we all sit.
No, totally get it.
So Jared, talking about the swim team now, I do know that you're involved with the UWO swim team, but why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Since you're still in high school, how does one get to be involved with the local university's swim team?
When you are a Special Olympics athlete, the Titans are your coaches. They give you so much.
Okay.
We have like a higher ratio of coaches over the athletes. So they get so much attention. I have learned to work on technique that way. That's why my technique looks so good. It's probably from all that attention.
Okay. Well, very good. And so when you don't swim with them though, right? You're just involved with the swim team from a standpoint that they are like they're your mentors and they help train you and that kind
Correct.
of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
They
hold
only
their
send out the
practices
good
are-
people
Okay.
out of those to coach us to be a good mentor.
Sure. And of course, at Oshkosh North, you're on the swim team there too, right?
I am on the
Yep.
swim team.
Have you been there the whole time?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
since freshman year.
All right, excellent. I want to talk in our remaining minutes with you, Tommy, about
Sure.
Special Olympics as an organization. We talked a little bit about the different sports that you guys offer and the 5 different sports seasons. How does someone become an athlete? If someone's watching this program or listening to this program and they think, I know that my child or my grandchild or my niece or my nephew or whatever the case may be, I know someone who might just be able to benefit from this.
The
What
best
should they
way to
do?
start, as you've already pointed out, is to go to our website, specialolympicswisconsin.org, and there's it kind of walks you through the process of becoming an athlete there. So there's some, it gives you some rough guidelines of the qualifications. So you have to enter into the traditional programming, you have to be 8 years old. If you're younger than that, you can do what's called Young Athletes. It's kind of a modified program for younger kids. But if you want to get into the traditional programming like Jared's in, you have to be 8 and you have to be diagnosed with an intellectual disability and then meet some other criteria. And then it's a pretty simple process, application process, and then you get kind of matched with an agency, a local agency. So the agency is that's where all the action happens, right? So for instance, Jared is with Oshkosh Special Olympics Agency, and we have over 160 agencies across the state. So no matter where you live, there's going to be an agency near you. And you'll get matched with an agency near you, and then you'll get matched with a sport that they offer. And then you'll be on your way, and hopefully before too long you'll be competing at a regional games or eventually state games
Or like an invite.
yeah, and then all the way up to eventually you might be lucky enough to go to a USA Games, or even like the 4 athletes that we have going to Abu Dhabi next year for the World Games. They even have World Games for Special
Holy
Olympics.
cow.
Yep. So they've got USA Games is the national level competition, and then they have a World Games, and then they have a World Winter Games as well. So last year we had 3 athletes go out to Austria to compete in the World Winter Games. We had 54 go to Seattle this year for the USA Games.
Wow.
We've got 4 going next year all the way out to Abu Dhabi. So there's a lot of really phenomenal opportunities to travel and do really once in a lifetime type of experiences.
Sure. Is there any cost associated with becoming an athlete?
So there isn't. So all of the activities and sports, so it's all free to the families, and that's why fundraising is so critical. We kind of have calculated it out to cost approximately $552 a year for each athlete to participate. And so all of that has to come from somewhere, because that's the one that's our one promise to the families of the athletes, is that it's always going to be at no cost to them. So
Sure.
we are fundraising around the year. I've already mentioned a few of the big ones. Polar plunge, here in Oshkosh. The polar plunge it's the largest polar plunge around the state here in Oshkosh,
Really?
because there's so much support for Special Olympics. In Oshkosh, it raised over $400,000 this year.
Holy cow.
Just in one location, and we have this year we had it in 12 locations around the state. We've got, again, like I mentioned, the Run with the Cops at UW Oshkosh. We have cop on our rooftop. I mean, just all the way down to kind of smaller scale fundraising at the local Buffalo Wild Wings or Texas Roadhouse or those types of things. So we're always fundraising. We're just churning it out 24/7 because that's our promise to the families and the athletes themselves, is that it will always be at no cost to them.
Sure.
I would also add to that anytime you see the Knights of Columbus out and they're selling like their Tootsie Rolls, if you go to church and they're selling their Tootsie Rolls, or the Knights of Columbus are having a pancake breakfast, like My family belongs to St. Raphael's Parish here in Oshkosh, and they do a Valentine's Day pancake breakfast. Whenever you see the Knights of Columbus, and the Knights of Columbus are selling something or they're having a brat stand, whatever, the Knights of Columbus are one of the biggest supporters of Special Olympics. They are a committed supporter of Special Olympics, and a lot of their money that they fundraise goes directly to Special Olympics. So that's another way. Like if you're out and about and you're not necessarily actively supporting, say, the polar plunge, but you are a supporter of Knights of Columbus, you are actually supporting Special Olympics too.
Sure.
Yeah, every year at the state games, I think it's usually like the Knights of Columbus from the Plover area have the biggest food tent
It's
and
huge.
grill
Massive.
every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
And they're like a presenting sponsor for our USA games. So every 4 years, they support financially our ability to go to wherever it may be, whether it's Seattle this year or New Jersey 4 years ago, or Orlando, Florida, which is where the next USA Games is going to be in 4 years. So they are always just a huge backer of us and of the USA Games
Sure.
In particular.
Sure. Now, if someone wants to become either a coach or a volunteer, can they do that on the website also?
Yep. So we've got, pretty, I think, user-friendly tabs for become an athlete, become a coach, become a volunteer. So we have 10,000 athletes in the state, and we've got just as many, if not more, volunteers that participate every year. And again, because we're a nonprofit organization that runs on the goodwill of the community, if you will. I mean, that they kind of are the engine that drives Special Olympics. So
Sure.
thousands of volunteers every year that help out in different capacities, whether it be from a day of volunteer who just helps with staging at a summer games, or all the way down up to agency managers and coaches who are like fully dedicated. I mean, it's a second job for them, and they just commit their lives to this.
Sure. Anything in our remaining minute or so that you feel that people should know about Special Olympics that we maybe haven't touched on during this last hour?
Gosh, we've covered a lot.
There's the million-dollar
yeah,
question,
I know.
right?
We've covered a lot, but I mean, I think the main thing that I would want to drive home is that, we're so much more than I think what people who aren't in our kind of circle, think of it as being, that we really want to be a driving force for the inclusion revolution, and making sure that people like Jared, like he said, are not locked away in a special ed class, and that they're included in their communities and in their schools and in the larger society. But I don't think that anything I could say could be as powerful as as the way that Wendy, as a parent of Jared, kind of articulated what Special Olympics has meant to her family and to Jared.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we've covered a lot here during the last hour, and when you hear things like that, our polar plunge here in Oshkosh has raised $400,000 to go to Special Olympics. I know like that sounds like a lot of money. It is to you and to me and to whoever, but when you also talk about the fact that there's 10,000 athletes here in the state of Wisconsin alone, and it costs $552 a year per athlete, that money dwindles away very quickly. Plus, you've got other expenses. So, I can't, I guess, emphasize enough to please, if you are interested in helping, do that by going to the website. If you're interested in donating, go to the website. If you just want to find out more or become involved in any way, go to the website. I keep saying that, but that's where
Can I
these all
make one
happen.
other plug other than
Real
go to the website?
Real quick.
Go to our Facebook page or our other social media, Special Olympics Wisconsin on Facebook. You can see cool stories like
All right,
Jared's.
there we go.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
And
having us.
congratulations again. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.